Hello everyone, and welcome to another video on the psychology of Berserk. This video will focus on Guts and his childhood by examining the golden age of Berserk. Many Berserk fanatics read the storyline of Berserk and fall in love with its captivating plot, but they miss the second layer of symbolic story that is present through the manga's artistic creativity and storytelling. In this video, I will shine a light on a symbolic way of interpreting the Golden Age arc, and specifically the chapters that focus on Guts' childhood development and his relationship with his father Gambino. The chapter starts with the symbolic imagery of a tree, which represents the tree of good and evil in a biblical sense. It is a forbidden tree where the knowledge of the psyche lies, and something that spits forth the truth in one's life. As Gambino is marching his mercenaries, he spots Shizu, a woman he is in love with, run to the tree and pick up a baby that is lying underneath the tree. Shizu is the representation of Eve within the story of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis. She picks up the baby, who is later known as Guts, and brings forth him along with the mercenary group, despite Gambino's insistence that she leave the baby there to die. This is a symbolic representation of eating the apple from the tree of knowledge. In this case, Gambino receives the apple from Shizu, and is now on the path of psychological transformation through the knowledge that is present throughout Guts' mere existence, and the relationship with him that will unfold. This image also represents an aspect of Guts, which is the capacity to adapt femininity within his psyche, or what Carl Jung described as the anima. He struggles to naturally integrate compassion, love, and empathy in his life, and this is symbolically represented through the death of his real mother, and later the death of Shizu, his adopted mother. The author is telling the audience that the aspects of femininity that a child has, and learning from his mother, which is integral for psychological wholeness, is erased and gone from the psyche of Guts. And this is clear as we see in the future Guts' brutality and pursuit of violence while struggling to be kind. There's a constant theme throughout these chapters, which is the reference of Guts as a bad omen. One of the mercenaries immediately states the following: "It's a bad omen, isn't it? Picking up a kid at a place like this?" Then Gambino states, "Ha, you guys scared?" This is an important line. We can ask the question, why would it be bad to save a child from his death? The answer is, it's not bad. It serves as the pinnacle of goodness. But the author puts this statement to show the psyche of the mercenaries, which is that they have committed evil and atrocities. Throughout their way, they have killed, raped, stole, betrayed, and succumbed to their primitive desires. Thus, they have become representations of evil, and now their shadow in their psyche is the idea of good, to be a good human, and they push this aside to maintain their identity and prevent psychological collapse. To explain this conceptualization in a more nuanced way, we can interpret this through Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. The shadow represents the unconscious and repressed aspects of an individual's personality, including instincts, desires, emotions, and traits that the person may not recognize or acknowledge in themselves. These aspects are often seen as negative or socially unacceptable, so they are pushed into the unconscious, forming the shadow. Within the world of Berserk, society thrives off of evil, and thus shuns aside what is good. Therefore, the group of mercenaries live a life within a hierarchy where being good, or identifying with the good of the world, is shunned, and thus becoming the shadow of each and every person. Guts symbolizes as a child this primitive nature of good, and the struggle the psyche goes through without acting out good in the material world. The prime example of this is the relationship Guts has with Gambino. Gambino is like a father figure to him. He trains him to be a fighter, but in the process goes beyond what is necessary for training and hurts Guts, giving him a deep cut on his nose. After several days, he sees Guts and offers him medicine for his wounds. You see through their interaction that Gambino's psyche along with his mercenaries have an intrinsic human nature to be good. And this is prominent through the use of a child as a symbolic figure to evoke this human nature. A child is the representation of everything that is good in the world. For Shizu, it is the primitive nature of feminine, to care and to protect. And for Gambino, it is the primitive nature in the masculine, to help develop and protect. Guts also is a symbolic representation of guilt that Gambino, the mercenaries, and the Berserk world has. He's the key that shines into all of their shadows, of wanting to be a good person, but hindered by the sins they have committed. Carl Jung states the following: "Only a fool is interested in other people's guilt, since he cannot alter it. The wise man learns only from his own guilt. He will ask himself, 'Who am I that all this should happen to me?' To find the answer to this fateful question, he will look into his own heart. This quote exemplifies the importance of guilt as a guiding force for individuals to find their shadows, confront it, and come forth to the truths of their sins. When Gambino and the mercenaries look at Guts, an innocent child, their psyche interprets his present and nature through feelings of guilt. When Guts gets hurt, even a man as brutal as Gambino feels a sense of shame and guilt and offers him medicine. This is not just a simple action, but rather the first glimpse into the recognition of Gambino's unconscious, which is introduced through the feelings of guilt that Guts brings forth within him. This is a concept that is profound. Take your own life and the interactions that you have with a child. When you ignore the child, or do not give him or her your time, there is a sense of guilt that you feel. Why is this? One possibility is that the guilt serves as a tool to explore one's psyche and a pathway towards wholeness and the divine, a way of interacting with the world that aims at the highest good. Following this, we now see the sabotaging nature of the psyche that has been exposed to evil for a prolonged time. Gambino as a character has developed as a warrior through harshness and has adapted sins in order to survive in the world. This has led his psyche to see his self, or his ego, as a person who is aggressive, ruthless, and strays away from the good, which is seen as weakness in the world of Berserk. But Guts as a child evokes these hidden aspects within Gambino, his inner shadow of goodness. He takes care of Guts from death and protects him. Continuing from here, you see a scene that dives even more deeper into the human psyche. This is when Gambino sells Guts to Donovan to be sexually assaulted. Now, why does he do this? On one hand, you see panels where he shows a glimpse into kindness and care, and now he sells Guts off like he means nothing to him. The author shows this to symbolize the struggle that humans who have succumbed to the darkest aspects of their psyche, and now their identity depends on the stability of this darkness. This is often a survival mechanism to combat environmental factors or a particular traumatic event. We see this all represented symbolically through Gambino. Guts as a child represents the good in the world and the aspects of human nature that combats evil. He gives Gambino, an evil man who has committed sin after sin, a chance at fatherhood and to foster love, compassion, and kindness. But Gambino's psyche is corrupted by the world around him, and his evil denies any aspect of good that attempts to penetrate his conscious and unconscious mind. In this sense, he sabotages his relationship with Guts by selling him to Donovan. And even as Guts, the symbol of good, attempts to continuously influence Gambino to save his soul by providing him with the money he earns in battle and the opportunity to foster and become closer to God, which is through the sacrifice of being a father to Guts. Gambino's corrupted psyche refuses this good and attempts to kill Guts. You can see the psychic process everywhere in your community. It is mostly present in individuals who suffer from addiction. For example, take a father who suffers from alcohol addiction. He torments his family, but the good inside of him, which can also be his conscious or the divine inside his psyche, compels him to do something nice for his family once in a while. But immediately, he goes back to his evil self and abuses his wife and children. Or take a person addicted to drugs who goes to a rehabilitation facility and is sober for a period of time. But on a weekend, when he feels alone and lonely, he succumbs to his addiction. There are a variety of reasons for this, but one is the psyche attempting to hold on to the identity that was formulated for years, and the comfort it gives to know who you are, which is an addict. In this sense, the rehabilitation and the sober days that define a path of good are much harder to accept, as they force you to confront the realities of your evil, as well as formulate a different identity that reflects the sins you have committed, but at the same time still moves forward in hopes of a better life. This is a large reason within psychotherapeutic relationships why individuals who face addiction tend to break their sobriety. A person who lives a good life after prison commits a crime, or a female who goes back to her abusive boyfriend, even when her surroundings tell her not to. This arc of Berserk provides an understanding of the human psyche and its vulnerabilities to the external world. It encompasses a unique idea of how a person given the opportunity to inflict change in their life and good is called upon their habits of evil. Through this, it also shows the steps towards overcoming the sins you may have committed in the past, which is through the pursuit of good, even when it forces you to lose the identity of evil that you have created. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, take care everyone.